Hey guys, one of my favorite things about books is they can take you to a place you've never been. We're about to start our new book called The Wind and the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Now in this book, it is going to take us into a whole different world, and that's one of the things that's so great about books. They can take us to places we've never been and can only imagine in our minds. So, let's go ahead and let's get started. Remember to pay close attention because you will have some questions to answer at the end. Good luck. Let's get started with The Wind and the Willows. The Wind and the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Characters that we will meet in this book are Mole, Molly, a rather shy fellow who leaves his underground home to stay with Ratty on the riverbank, Water Rat, known as Ratty, a friendly riverbanker who enjoys boating, good company, and picnic lunches. Toad, a rich, jolly fellow who tends to brag and go overboard when it comes to boats, gypsy wagons, and fast motor cars. Badger, a wise, quiet fellow in the wild wood who prefers to stay away from society, but always takes care of his friends. Otter, another friend from Riverbank. Portly, Otter's young son who wanders off. The Hedgehogs, two agreeable young lads who stop in at Badger's house. The Toot Toot, the motor car that fascinates Toad and fills him with glee. Jailer's Daughter, the young lady who has a soft spot for Toad and helps him escape from jail. Washerwoman, the stout woman who switches clothes with Toad so he can be disguised as a washerwoman. Engine Driver, the train engineer who helps Toad escape the law. Barge Woman, the barge driver who recognizes Toad for the fool he is. Gypsy, a traveling man who agrees to sell a horse to Toad. Weasels, Stoats, and Ferrets, wily thieving fellows from the wildwood who take over Toad Hall. Chapter 1. The Riverbank. The mole had been working very hard all morning, spring cleaning his little home, first with brooms, then with rags, then with a brush and a pail of whitewash. Spring was moving in, and the air above, filtering down even to his dark little house beneath the soil. It was no wonder, then, that he suddenly flung down his brush and said, "Hang on, spring cleaning!" Something in the air up above was calling to him. He hurried out of his house, through a steep little tunnel, muttering, "Up we go!" till the last pop. His snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm meadow. "This is fine," he said to himself. "Better than whitewashing." He scampered across the sunny meadow till he reached the hedge on the far side. It all seemed too good to be true. Hither and thither through the meadows he rambled, busily finding birds building, flowers budding, leaves thrusting, and instead of feeling badly for not doing his work, he somehow felt jolly. After all, the best part of his day off is not so much resting yourself, but to see everyone else busy working. He thought his happiness was complete when suddenly he stood by the edge of a flowering, sparkling river. He'd never seen a river before. He sat down, enchanted. A dark hole in the opposite bank, just above the water's edge, caught his eye. Something bright twinkled down in the heart of it. Then, as he looked, it winked at him, and so declared itself to be an eye. A small face appeared, a brown face with whiskers, a round face with a twinkle in its eye, with small, neat ears and thick, silky hair. It was the Water Rat. The two animals stood and eyed each other. "Hello, Mole," said the Water Rat. "Hello, Rat," said the Mole. "Would you like to come over?" asked the Rat. "Oh, it's all very well to talk," said the Mole, from across the flowing river. The Rat had said nothing, but untied a rope and pulled on it, and then lightly stepped onto a little blue boat. It was just the size for two animals. The Rat rowed rapidly across, tied up the boat, and held out a paw to Mole. Soon the Mole found himself actually seated in the back of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," said the Mole. "Do you know, I've never been in a boat before?" "What?" cried the Rat, open-mouthed. "It's the only thing! Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing like simply messing about in boats. Simply messing. He went on dreamily, "Messing about in boats." "Look ahead, Rat!" cried the Mole suddenly. It was too late. The boat struck the opposite bank full force. The Rat landed on his back at the bottom of the boat, his heels in the air. He picked himself up with a pleasant laugh. "Yes, there's nothing like a day in a boat. Look here! If you've got no other plans this morning, supposing we drop down the river together and have a long day of it." The Mole wiggled his toes and leaned back onto the cushions. "What a day I'm having," he said. "Let us start at once." "Hold a minute." The Rat slipped into a hole in the bank and returned with a lunch basket. "What's inside?" asked the Mole. "A picnic. There's cold chicken," replied the Rat. "Cold ham, pickles, rolls, lemonade, and ginger ale." "Oh, stop!" cried the Mole. "This is too much. You must think me very rude, but all this is so new to me. So this is a river?" "The river," corrected the Rat as he rowed. "It's my world, and I don't want any other." "But isn't it a bit dull at times?" the Mole asked, dragging a paw in the water. "Just you and the river, and no one else to pass a word with?" "Dull?" asked the Rat patiently. "Never. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away altogether. All day long there's always someone wanting to do something." "What lies over there?" asked the Mole, waving a paw toward a woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on the other side of the river. "Oh, that's the wildwood," said the Rat. "We river bankers don't go there." Aren't they very nice people in there?" asked the Mole a bit nervously. "Well," replied the Rat, "let me see. The squirrels are all right, and the rabbits, some of them. And then there's Badger, dear old Badger. Of course, there are others. Weasels and stoats and foxes. They're all right in their way, but you can't really trust them, and that's the fact." "And beyond the wildwood?" asked the Mole. "Beyond the wildwood comes the wide world," said the Rat. "I've never been there, and I'm never going. Neither will you, if you've got any sense. Now then, let's have lunch." The Rat brought the boat alongside the bank, tied the boat, and helped Mole safely ashore. Mole excitedly shook out the tablecloth and arranged the lunch, saying, "Oh, my! Oh, my!" After they had eaten a little, the Rat asked the Mole, "What are you looking at?" "I am looking," said the Mole, "at a streak of bubbles traveling along the surface of the water." A broad, glistening nose showed itself above the bank, and the Otter hauled himself out. "Greedy beggars," he said. "Why didn't you invite me, Ratty?" "Oh, this was an unpleasant event," explained the Rat. "By the way, my friend Mr. Mole—" "Pleased to meet you, I'm sure," said the Otter. There was a rustle behind them. Coming from a hedge, and a stripy head with high shoulders behind it peered out over them. "Come on, old Badger!" shouted the Rat. The Badger turned his back and disappeared. "That's just the sort of fellow he is," said the Rat, disappointed. "Stays to himself. Well, tell us, Otter, who is out on the river?" "Toad's out, for one," replied the Otter, "in his new wager boat. New outfit, new everything." The two looked at each other and laughed. "First he took to sailing," said the Rat. "Then it was flat-bottom boats. Last year it was houseboating. Now a wager boat? He gets tired of one thing and starts something new." "No stability," remarked the Otter wisely. Just then a wager boat flashed into view. The rower, a short, stout fellow, splashed badly and rocked a good deal. The Rat stood up and called to him, but Toad, for it was he, shook his head. "He'll be out of that boat in a minute," said Rat. The Otter chuckled and then slipped away. "I suppose we ought to be moving on," said the Rat. "I wonder which of us had better pack the lunch basket." "Oh, please, let me," said the Mole. which he did. The afternoon sun was getting low as the rat rode gently homeward, murmuring poetry things over to himself. The mole shouted with delight, "Ratty, please, I want to row!" "Wait till you've had a few lessons." The mole, without comment, jumped up and grabbed the oars. The rat was taken by surprise and fell backward off his seat, with his legs in the air for a second time. "Stop it, you silly fruitcake!" cried the rat. "You'll have us over!" The mole flung the oars back and missed the water altogether. His legs flew up and he found himself lying on top of the up-ended rat. Then over went the boat. Oh my! How cold the water was to Mole! Oh, how very wet it felt! It sang in his ears as he went down, down. Then a firm paw gripped him by the back of his neck. The rat pulled the helpless animal to shore, hauled him out, and set him down on the bank. A squashy, pulpy lump of misery. The rat rubbed the mole down a bit and laughed, saying, "Now then, old fellow, trot up and down the bank as hard as you can till you're warm and dry again, while I dive in for the basket." When Rat had brought everything up, the mole took his seat in the back of the boat. "Ratty, I'm so sorry. Will you let things go on this before?" "What's a little wet to a water rat?" responded the rat. "I really think you would enjoy visiting with me for a time. My home is plain, but I could teach you how to row and to swim. Soon you'll be as handy as a river banker's." The mole humbly accepted, and when they got back to Rat's home, the rat told the mole river stories till supper time. But very shortly afterward, a terribly sleepy mole had to be led upstairs to the guest bedroom, where he soon fell fast asleep. This day was only the first of many similar ones for Mole. As spring and summer moved on, he learned to swim and to row, and, with his ear to the river reeds, he often could hear what the wind whispered among them. All right, so that is the end of Chapter 1. Make sure that you answer all the questions completely and click submit at the end. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.